Boil them in a pressurized cauldron of 151 degrees Celsius. Freeze them in a bath of liquid helium, just fractions of a degree above absolute zero. Expose them to the crushing weight of a 60,000-story building, or fire them into the airless, radiation-scorched vacuum of low Earth orbit. They do not die. In any other corner of the known universe, these conditions are the definition of an ending. For the phylum Tardigrade, they are merely an inconvenience. We tend to think of life as a fragile flame, a continuous chemical reaction that, once extinguished, is gone forever. But the tardigrade challenges every assumption we have. It suggests that biology is not a fire at all, but a switch that can be toggled to off for 30 years, and then, with a single drop of water, flicked back to on. This is not a story about a resilient animal. This is a forensic analysis of a biological paradox, an organism that appears fundamentally over-engineered for the planet it inhabits, an organism that, by the laws of terrestrial evolution, should not exist. The tardigrade, or water bear, is a master of the mundane. In its active state, it is a microscopic invertebrate, rarely exceeding 1.0 millimeters in length. It possesses a head, 4 body segments, and 8 stubby legs tipped with specialized claws. It has a complete digestive system, a brain, and a nervous system. Complex engineering for a creature that spends its days eating moss and lichens in your backyard gutter. But there is a misalignment between its lifestyle and its capabilities. We find them in the Himalayan peaks at altitudes of 6,000 meters and at the abyssal floor of the ocean, 4,600 meters deep. They are cosmopolitan, found from the hyper-arid Antarctic to the humid tropics. Yet, even these extreme terrestrial niches do not explain their thresholds of endurance. Consider the pressure. In laboratory settings, tardigrades have survived hydrostatic pressures as high as 7.5 gigapascals. To understand that scale, picture the Mariana Trench, our deepest point in the ocean. The pressure there is approximately 110 megapascals. The tardigrade can endure nearly 70 times that. 7.5 gigapascals is the pressure found 180 kilometers beneath the Earth's surface, deep within the planetary mantle. At this intensity, water does not stay liquid. It undergoes a phase transition into Ice 7, a cubic crystalline form of ice so dense it is usually only found in the cores of super-Earth exoplanets. A human in this environment would not just be crushed, their molecular structure would be fundamentally rewritten. The tardigrade simply waits. And then there is the radiation. We measure radiation in grays. A dose of 5 grays is a death sentence for a human. At Chernobyl, inside the ruins of reactor number 4, radiation levels reached 200 grays per hour. A person would be lethally irradiated in less than 2 minutes. The tardigrade has a median lethal dose of 5,000 grays. They are, quite literally, 1,000 times more resistant to the destruction of their DNA than any human being. This is where the detective must ask, why? Natural selection is a pragmatic engineer. It does not invest in shields against 7,000 grays of radiation if the organism only ever encounters the mild rays of the sun. It does not build a hull for the Earth's mantle if the creature lives in a moss cushion in London. The tardigrade possesses a latent potential for survival that exceeds any challenge the Earth has offered in 500 million years. The secret to this impossibility is not a better metabolism, but the total absence of one. When the environment becomes hostile, the tardigrade enters cryptobiosis, a state of suspended animation so profound it blurs the line between a living creature and a grain of dust. It retracts its head and legs, expels 97% of its body water, and shrivels into a ton. In this state, there is no respiration. There is no DNA repair. There is no movement. If you were to look at a ton through a microscope, you would see a corpse. But this is not a death. It is a vitrification. As the water leaves its cells, the tardigrade replaces it with a unique family of molecules. Tardigrade-specific intrinsically disordered proteins, or TDPs. These proteins do not have a fixed shape. Instead, as the cell dries, they fill the cytoplasm and harden into a biological glass. This is the twist. The tardigrade's insides do not crystallize, which would shatter the cell membranes like shards of ice. They become glass. This molecular matrix acts as a straitjacket, locking every delicate protein and strand of DNA in place, preventing them from unfolding or fusing. They have turned their biology into a hardware backup. In 2016, a specimen known as SB1 was revived after being frozen in a moss sample for 30 years. Within hours of rehydration, its legs began to move. Within weeks, it was eating and laying healthy eggs. For 3 decades, time did not exist for SB1. Entropy was paused by a biological shield of glass. But glass only protects the structure. What protects the code? Radiation is a hail of subatomic bullets. It creates reactive oxygen species that shred DNA. To counter this, the tardigrade evolved a guardian found nowhere else in the animal kingdom: the damage suppressor protein, or dsup. Dsup is a cloud of positive charge that localizes in the cell nucleus. It acts as a physical shield, wrapping around the DNA and binding to nucleosomes. When a hydroxyl radical, the byproduct of radiation, strikes, it doesn't hit the DNA. It hits the dsup shield. When scientists took the gene for dsup and inserted it into human kidney cells in a lab, those human cells suddenly became 40% more resistant to X-ray damage. We are looking at a technology of resilience that we are only beginning to understand. Here is what breaks the logic of evolution. Tardigrades first appeared in our oceans over 500 million years ago, likely descending from the Lobopodians of the Cambrian explosion. They have survived all 5 mass extinctions, but the cross-tolerance hypothesis suggests that their ability to survive space and the mantle is merely a chemical accident. The theory posits that because their terrestrial homes, like moss, dry out constantly, they had to evolve the glass mechanism to survive desiccation. It just so happens that the same proteins that protect against drying also protect against the hard vacuum of space. But accident is a word we use when the evidence doesn't fit the frame. In 2007, the TARDIS mission proved that tardigrades could survive 10 days of direct exposure to the vacuum and solar UV radiation of low Earth orbit. They are the first animals to touch the open void and live to tell the tale. This leaves us with a haunting possibility. If the tardigrade is over-engineered for Earth, perhaps it is perfectly engineered for something else. Some researchers point to panspermia, the idea that life travels between worlds on meteorites. A creature that can survive absolute zero and 7.5 gigapascals of impact shock is a creature that can survive an interplanetary journey. We don't know if they came from the stars, but we know they are ready to return to them. We are used to defining life by its activity, by the fire of metabolism. If the fire goes out, the life is over. But the tardigrade suggests a different reality. It suggests that life is not a process, but an arrangement, a specific architecture of matter that can be off as easily as it can be on. In the ton state, the tardigrade is an inanimate object. It has no pulse, it has no thoughts, it has no chemical exchange with the world. And yet, the potential for life remains etched into its glassy cells. It forces us to reframe our own existence. We are not just our heartbeats or our electrical signals. We are a code. And if that code is protected, if the arrangement is preserved, then death is not an end. It is merely a pause. The tardigrade does not just endure the impossible, it mocks it. It reminds us that our definitions of habitable and survivable are based on a very small sample size. In the deep time of the cosmos, the tardigrade is the detective, and we are the mystery. It remains a micro-titan, waiting in a gutter for a drop of rain, carrying within its tiny, translucent frame the secret to surviving the end of the world, and perhaps the beginning of the next one.